Trucker Horror Stories. Story number 1, The Loop on Highway 50. Marcus Webb had been driving long haul for 19 years, crossing Nevada's Highway 50, America's loneliest road, more times than he could count. On a Tuesday night in October 2019, he departed from Ely at 11:47 p.m., hauling electronics to Sacramento. The moon hung low, casting silver shadows across the desert sage. His CB radio crackled with occasional chatter from distant truckers, but mostly he drove in silence, the hum of his Peterbilt 579 his only companion. Around mile marker 78, Marcus noticed something peculiar. A twisted juniper tree stood alone on the roadside, its branches forming an almost perfect spiral. He'd never noticed it before, but the moonlight made it strikingly visible. He checked his GPS, 298 miles to Sacramento, arrival time 7:15 a.m. He sipped his coffee and pushed forward. 20 minutes later, Marcus saw the tree again. Same spiral branches, same position relative to the road. His stomach tightened. He grabbed his CB radio. "Breaker, breaker, this is Desert Dog on Highway 50 westbound. Anyone else out here seeing weird stuff tonight?" Static answered. He checked his odometer. He'd definitely traveled 20 miles. But there was the tree, identical in every detail. His GPS still read 298 miles to Sacramento. The time showed 12:31 a.m. That was wrong. He'd been driving for 44 minutes. He should have covered at least 40 miles. Marcus felt sweat bead on his forehead despite the cool night air. He accelerated to 75, watching his speedometer carefully. The road stretched endlessly ahead, perfectly straight, flanked by dark desert on both sides. No other vehicles, no lights from distant towns, just asphalt, stars, and that persistent feeling of wrongness crawling up his spine. He passed a mile marker, 78, the same one. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. Marcus tried his cell phone. No signal, not unusual here. He attempted the CB again. Nothing but that empty static, like the sound of wind through a dead forest. His GPS flickered, and for a moment the screen showed impossible data. 47 miles to Sacramento. Arrival time undefined. Then it reset to 298 miles. 30 minutes more. The spiral juniper appeared again on his right. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. He'd been driving hard, maintaining speed, watching his mirrors. The road never curved, never changed. But he kept passing the same tree, the same mile marker, trapped in some impossible loop. He decided to stop. Maybe he was hallucinating, suffering from carbon monoxide poisoning or exhaustion-induced psychosis. Marcus pulled onto the shoulder near the tree. He killed the engine, and absolute silence descended, not even wind. The desert should have been alive with night sounds, coyotes, insects, the whisper of breeze through sage. Nothing. Marcus climbed down from his cab. The air felt thick, almost gelatinous, resisting his movements. He walked toward the juniper tree, his boots crunching on gravel that sounded muffled, distant. Up close, the tree looked wrong. Its bark had a texture like melted wax, and the spiral branches seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. Behind the tree, he found something that made his blood freeze. Tire tracks. Fresh ones. His tire tracks. They came from the west, circled behind the tree, and headed back west. But that was impossible. He'd driven straight, never turned around, never deviated from the highway. A sound broke the silence. His own truck's engine starting. Marcus spun around. His Peterbilt sat there, engine running, headlights blazing, but he had the keys in his pocket. He could see into the cab. Someone was sitting in his seat. Someone wearing his clothes. Someone with his face. The other Marcus looked at him through the windshield, made eye contact, and smiled. Then the truck pulled back onto the highway and drove west, carrying his cargo, his logbook, his entire life. Marcus stood frozen, watching his own truck disappear into the darkness. He checked his pockets frantically. No keys. They were gone, though he'd felt them there seconds before. No phone, no wallet, just empty pockets. The juniper tree behind him made a sound like breathing. Marcus ran. He sprinted down Highway 50 westbound, his lungs burning, legs pumping. The road stretched endlessly ahead. After what felt like hours but might have been minutes, he saw lights. A truck stop materialized from nowhere. Bright, garish, impossible. He'd driven this stretch 100 times. There was no truck stop at mile marker 78. Inside, 3 other truckers sat at the counter, staring into cold cups of coffee. They looked up as Marcus burst through the door, and their faces held the same hollow recognition. They'd been here before. They'd been here forever. The waitress, ancient with eyes like burnt holes, smiled at Marcus. "Coffee, hun? You look like you've been driving all night." Marcus checked the wall clock. 11:47 p.m., the exact time he'd passed the juniper tree first, or second, or thousandth. He couldn't remember anymore. Through the window, he watched his Peterbilt pull into the parking lot. The other Marcus climbed out, stretched, and walked toward the diner entrance. Their eyes met through the glass. The other Marcus's smile widened. The door opened. The other Marcus sat down at the counter, ordered coffee, started talking to the waitress about his route to Sacramento, about departing from Ely, about the long, lonely road ahead. Marcus felt himself fading, becoming translucent. He looked at his hands. They were disappearing, turning to smoke. The other truckers at the counter weren't looking at him anymore. They were looking through him. The last thing Marcus heard before he vanished completely was the other Marcus saying, "I've been driving long haul for 19 years. Never seen anything weird. Not once." Story number 2. The passenger who wasn't there. Rachel Donnelly picked up the hitchhiker against her better judgment. 15 years driving refrigerated freight across the Midwest should have taught her better, but the woman standing in the rain on I-80 near Des Moines looked desperate. It was 3:17 a.m. on a Saturday in March 2021, and something about the woman's stillness made Rachel break her Freightliner Cascadia. The woman climbed in without speaking, water dripping from her outdated floral dress. She looked about 30 with dark hair plastered to her pale face. Rachel noticed she wasn't shivering despite being soaked to the bone. "Where you headed?" Rachel asked, pulling back onto the empty interstate. "East," the woman said softly. Her voice sounded distant, like it was traveling through water to reach Rachel's ears. Rachel nodded, unsettled but committed now. She kept her eyes on the road, occasionally glancing at her passenger. The woman stared straight ahead, unblinking, her hands folded in her lap. She didn't fidget, didn't adjust her position, didn't do any of the small, unconscious movements people make. She just sat, perfectly still. "What's your name?" Rachel tried again after 20 miles of uncomfortable silence. "Sarah," the woman replied after a long pause, as if remembering something from long ago. Rachel's CB radio crackled with traffic, truckers chattering about weather, road conditions, way stations. She reached to adjust the volume, and in that brief moment of looking away, she caught her passenger's reflection in the windshield. There was no reflection. Rachel's hand froze on the radio dial. She looked directly at Sarah, solid, physical, sitting right there in the passenger seat. Then back at the windshield. Nothing. Just Rachel's own reflection against the dark glass. Her mouth went dry. She checked the passenger side mirror. Empty seat. But when she turned her head, Sarah sat there motionless, staring ahead. "Where did you say you were coming from?" Rachel's voice cracked. "I don't remember," Sarah said. "I've been walking for a long time." Rachel's speedometer read 72 miles per hour, but the mile markers seemed wrong. They should have been approaching the Quad Cities, but the signs indicated they were still near Des Moines. She'd been driving for 45 minutes. At her speed, she should have covered 50 miles, but her GPS showed she'd moved less than 8. You need to let me out, Sarah said suddenly, turning to look at Rachel for the first time. Her eyes were completely black, no whites, no iris, just depthless darkness. Rachel's hands trembled on the wheel. Where? There's nothing here. Anywhere, everywhere, it doesn't matter. Sarah's voice had changed, becoming layered, as if multiple people were speaking through her mouth simultaneously. The temperature in the cab dropped precipitously. Rachel could see, her breath misting in the air. Her refrigeration unit was hauling frozen goods, but the cab climate control was set to 72 degrees. Now it felt like a freezer. "What are you?" Rachel whispered. Sarah smiled, and her teeth were too numerous, too sharp. "I'm what's left. I'm what remains when someone disappears from a road like this and nobody finds them. I'm the echo." Rachel tried to brake, but her foot wouldn't move. Her hands were locked on the steering wheel, muscles frozen. The truck continued at exactly 72 miles per hour, but the world outside had changed. The highway stretched through darkness that wasn't natural night. No stars, no moon, just infinite black pressing against the windows. Other trucks appeared, traveling parallel to Rachel's on a road that should have been empty. Dozens of them, all different makes and models, all from different eras. She saw an ancient Mac from the 1950s, a modern Tesla Semi, everything in between. And in each cab, she could see the driver staring straight ahead, expressionless, with a passenger in the seat beside them. All the passengers looked like Sarah. "This is the collection route," Sarah explained, her voice almost gentle now. "Every road has one, a place where the lost gather. We wait for drivers who see us, who stop for us, and then we take them where they need to go." "Where's that?" Rachel managed to gasp. "Nowhere. Forever." Rachel watched in horror as her own hands began to fade, becoming translucent. She could see through her fingers to the steering wheel beneath. The sensation was painless but terrifying. Existence simply leaking away like water through a sieve. "Please," Rachel begged. "I have a daughter, Jessica. She's 16. She needs me." For the first time, Sarah's expression shifted. Something like sadness flickered across her inhuman features. "I had a daughter too, Emma. She was 12 when I disappeared on Highway 80 in 1987. Do you think she still remembers me?" The other trucks were fading now, winking out like extinguished candles. The darkness outside began to lighten, slowly, painfully. Rachel felt solidity returning to her hands, color bleeding back into her skin. "I remember," Rachel said desperately. "Tell me more about Emma. What did she look like?" Sarah's black eyes glistened with something that might have been tears. Blonde hair, gap in her front teeth. She loved horses. "Then she remembers you," Rachel insisted. "If you loved her like that, she remembers. That means you're not just an echo, you're still real somewhere." The highway was back, real, solid, with normal darkness and actual stars. Rachel's GPS showed I-80 near Davenport, Iowa. Her passenger seat was empty, though she could still feel the residual cold where Sarah had sat. On the seat lay a single object, a faded photograph. A woman in her 30s standing with a blonde girl, both smiling, a carousel visible in the background. Rachel picked it up with shaking hands. Written on the back in girlish handwriting, "Mom and me, State Fair, 1986, love, Emma." Rachel pulled off at the next rest stop. She sat in her idling truck for 20 minutes, holding the photograph, crying. Then she searched her phone for missing persons cases from 1987, Highway 80, Iowa. She found it. Sarah Mitchell, age 32, disappeared March 15, 1987, while traveling from Des Moines to Davenport. Last seen at a rest stop, survived by daughter Emma Mitchell. Rachel searched for Emma Mitchell, found her in Ohio. Now 58 years old, a grandmother herself. The contact information was public. Rachel stared at her phone for a long time. Finally, she dialed. When a woman answered, Rachel said, "You don't know me, but I think I met your mother tonight, and I think she wanted you to know she never forgot you." The silence on the other end stretched for an eternity. Then, "What did she look like?" Rachel told her. "Everything." Emma Mitchell wept. "I knew she didn't just leave us. I knew it." Rachel promised to mail the photograph. She kept her promise. 6 days later, she received a response, a letter thanking her, along with a small newspaper clipping. It showed Emma Mitchell standing at a memorial service, placing flowers on a grave marker that had been empty for 34 years. Rachel still drives I-80. She's never picked up another hitchhiker. But sometimes, late at night, she sees them standing in the rain, and she whispers a prayer that someone somewhere remembers their names. Story number 3, the facility that doesn't exist. Darren Cole's GPS died 40 miles outside of Winnemucca, Nevada, on a November night in 2018. He'd been hauling construction equipment from Reno to Salt Lake City, and losing navigation was annoying but manageable. He'd driven I-80 enough times to know the route. His Kenworth W900 handled the empty highway with its usual steady power, and Darren settled in for the long, dark crossing of northern Nevada's emptiness. Around 1:30 a.m., his fuel gauge dipped toward a quarter tank. Too low for comfort in this sparse region. Darren scanned for signs of a truck stop, but saw only darkness and distant mountain silhouettes. Then lights appeared ahead, bright, modern, unexpected. A facility materialized from the black desert. Huge metal buildings, security lights on tall poles, a paved parking area with clear fuel station markers. No sign indicated what it was. No corporate logo. Just clean, professional infrastructure that definitely hadn't been there on any of his previous runs. Darren shrugged. Things got built fast sometimes. He pulled in. The facility was enormous, much larger than it had appeared from the highway. 3 warehouse-sized buildings formed a U-shape around the central parking area. The fuel pumps were standard commercial diesel, modern digital displays showing price per gallon. But nobody staffed them. No attendant booth, no payment terminal, just pumps. Darren climbed down from his cab. The air felt wrong, too still, too clean, carrying an antiseptic smell that didn't belong in the desert. Security lights illuminated everything with harsh white brilliance. But the buildings had no windows, just blank metal walls with occasional unmarked doors. He tried the fuel pump. It activated without payment, displaying authorized user, proceed. Darren frowned but started filling his tank. Free diesel was suspicious, but breaking down in the desert was worse. While fuel flowed, he walked toward the nearest building. A door stood slightly ajar, warm yellow light spilling from inside. Darren's curiosity overcame his caution. He pushed the door open. Inside was a warehouse filled with cargo containers. Hundreds of them stacked in precise rows, all identical gray metal, all bearing the same symbol. A triangle within a circle done in red paint. The symbol looked familiar, but Darren couldn't place it. He'd seen thousands of shipping marks over his career. They blurred together. The containers were humming. All of them. A low-frequency vibration that Darren felt in his bones more than heard. He approached the nearest one. It had no lock, just a simple latch. The humming grew louder. Darren opened it. Inside were watches, thousands of them, all different styles and eras, arranged in careful rows on velvet-lined shelves. Every single watch showed 1:47 a.m. They were all running, second hands sweeping in perfect synchronization, but frozen at that same time. His own watch read 1:47 a.m. Darren backed away and checked his phone. No signal, but the time display showed 1:47 a.m. He looked at the digital clock on the warehouse wall. 1:47 a.m. His heart racing, Darren opened another container. This one held photographs, stacks upon stacks of them, all showing the same scene. This facility taken from various angles during different times of day or night. In some photos, trucks were parked in the lot. Darren shuffled through them frantically. He found one showing his exact Kenworth, parked exactly where it sat now, taken from above. The photo was dated November 2018, this month, this year, but he'd never been photographed here. He'd arrived 15 minutes ago. Darren dropped the photos and ran to a third container. Against his better judgment, against every screaming instinct, he had to know. Inside were logbooks. Thousands of driver logbooks from decades of trucking, all different companies and drivers. Darren grabbed one at random. Michael Sanders, 1992, Utah to California. The last entry was dated November 17, 1992, with a note, "Stopped for fuel at strange facility on I-80, going to investigate." Another logbook, Patricia Chen, 2005, final entry. Found weird compound off the interstate, no staff taking fuel. Another James Wright, 2011. Another Kelly Morrison, 1998. Another Raymond Lopez, 2003. Darren's hands shook as he grabbed his own logbook from his cab. His last entry, written 90 minutes ago. Clear roads, good time. Should reach Salt Lake by 8 a.m. He hadn't mentioned the facility because he hadn't known about it when he wrote that. He flipped to the next blank page. Words appeared there as he watched, writing themselves in his own handwriting. Stopped at facility, can't leave, don't know how long. The date next to those phantom words was November 15, 2018, today. Written in his handwriting, in his logbook, describing something that hadn't happened yet but was happening now. Darren threw the logbook down and sprinted for his truck. The fuel pump was still running, diesel overflowing from his tank, pooling on the pavement. He stopped it, hands fumbling with the nozzle. His fuel gauge showed full, but the pump display indicated 0 gallons delivered. He climbed into his cab and turned the key. The engine wouldn't start. It cranked but never caught, just turning over endlessly. Darren tried his CB radio. "Anyone out there? This is Colorado Bear on I-80 near Winnemucca. I need help. There's something wrong with..." Static, then a voice. "Colorado Bear, this is Knight Rider. Your signal's coming in weird, buddy. Are you okay?" "No, I'm at this facility and I can't..." "What facility? There's nothing on I-80 between Winnemucca and Wells, just desert." Darren looked at his mirrors. The facility blazed with light behind him, massive and undeniable. "The big compound. 3 buildings, fuel station, you can't miss it." "Buddy, there's nothing there. Want me to send help to your location?" "Yes, please." "What's your mile marker?" Darren looked around desperately. There were no mile markers visible, no highway signs, nothing indicating where this place existed in relation to the real world. The CB went dead. All the lights in the facility shut off simultaneously, plunging everything into absolute darkness. Darren's headlights didn't work. His cab lights were dead. Even his phone screen went black. In the darkness, he heard footsteps. Not human footsteps. Something too heavy with too many impacts per stride, approaching from multiple directions. Darren locked his doors uselessly and huddled in his seat. The footsteps circled his truck, methodical, patient. Something scraped along his trailer, metal on metal, a sound like knives on a whetstone. The darkness lasted forever and no time at all. When light returned, gray dawn light, natural and clean, Darren was parked on the shoulder of I-80, 50 yards past the Winnemucca exit. Normal traffic flowed around him. His fuel tank was full. His engine started on the first try. His GPS worked perfectly, showing his location, calculating his route to Salt Lake City. His logbook sat on the passenger seat, open to his last entry. Clear roads, good time. Nothing about a facility. But underneath that, in different ink, in handwriting that was almost but not quite his own, someone had written, "You saw it. Don't look for it again, we're watching now." Darren drove straight to Salt Lake City without stopping. He delivered his load, then quit trucking that same day. He never drove I-80 again. 6 months later, Darren searched news archives for missing truckers along that route. He found 17 cases over 40 years, drivers who simply vanished with their rigs, no trace, no explanation. The cases stretched back to 1957. He printed their photos and names. Every night he looks at them and wonders if they're still there, trapped in that facility that doesn't exist, while their watches forever show 1:47 a.m. Story number 4, the backwards highway. Tom Richardson thought he'd taken a wrong turn, but his GPS insisted he was on Highway 60 heading east through Arizona towards Socorro, New Mexico. The confusion started when the sun began setting in the wrong direction, ahead of him instead of behind. Tom had been driving professionally for 12 years. He knew which way was east, but the sun was descending directly in front of his windshield. He grabbed his CB radio. Any drivers on Highway 60 eastbound near Show Low? This is Desert Fox, over. A crackling response came through. Desert Fox, this is Lone Star. I'm westbound on 60, haven't passed anyone going your direction. Where exactly are you? Tom checked his GPS. Says I'm at mile marker 342, heading east. That's impossible, buddy. I just passed 342 going west. Nobody here but me. Tom's grip tightened on the steering wheel. His 2020 Volvo VNL 760 was hauling furniture to New Mexico, a routine run he'd done dozens of times. The highway looked normal. 2 lanes, desert landscape, the occasional scattered ranch house. But everything felt mirrored, reversed, wrong. He passed a road sign. Socorro, 85 miles. That was correct for his route, but the sun was definitely setting ahead of him, not behind. Tom pulled over and climbed out, needing to verify what his eyes were telling him. The sun hung low on the horizon, red and swollen, exactly where east should be. Tom pulled out his phone compass app. It pointed north accurately when he faced the direction that felt like north. Then he turned to face his truck's front end, the direction he'd been traveling. The compass spun wildly, unable to find north, the needle rotating in complete circles. His stomach churned. Tom got back in his truck and checked his paper atlas, old-school navigation that didn't rely on satellites. According to the map, Highway 60 ran basically east-west through this region. He was pointed the right direction according to every sign, every landmark, but the sun said otherwise. He decided to continue. Maybe he was suffering from some weird optical illusion, fatigue-induced confusion. Tom merged back onto the highway and drove, watching the sun sink lower ahead of him. Then he saw the other truck. It was coming toward him in his lane, headlights blazing in the growing dusk. Tom's heart lurched and he swerved right, blasting his horn. The other truck, a Peterbilt hauling a container, passed directly through his vehicle. Tom felt the temperature drop 30 degrees in an instant. He felt the physical sensation of passage like driving through a waterfall. Then the other truck was in his mirror, continuing behind him, real and solid. He looked at the truck's taillights receding backward. They glowed red, normal, as if it were traveling away from him. But it had come toward him. He'd seen its headlights. He'd felt it pass through him. Tom's hands shook violently. He slowed to 50, then 40, trying to process what had happened. More trucks appeared ahead, all with headlights on, all coming directly at him in his lane. Tom moved to the shoulder, but they adjusted too, tracking him, driving straight for his position. One by one, they passed through his truck like ghosts. Each passage brought that waterfall sensation, that impossible cold, that moment of dual existence where Tom could see through his own hands to the steering wheel beneath. This wasn't a wrong turn. This was something else entirely. Tom noticed the landscape repeating. A distinctive rock formation shaped like a cathedral appeared on his right. 5 minutes later, it appeared again. Identical. The same ranch house with the same rusted tractor in the yard passed 3 times. He was traveling. His odometer confirmed miles rolling by, but moving through space that looped back on itself. His radio crackled. "Tom Richardson, please respond." His own voice. He was hearing himself. "Who is this?" Tom demanded. "This is Tom Richardson driving westbound on Highway 60. I'm trying to reach Socorro before midnight. Can anyone hear me?" "I hear you," Tom said carefully. "This is also Tom Richardson." Silence. Then, "That's not funny. Who is this really?" "Look at your driver's license. Born March 15th, 1979 in Flagstaff. Purple birthmark on your left shoulder blade. Wife's name is Jennifer. Daughter Kayla. Son Michael." The other voice went quiet for a long time. "How do you know all that?" "Because I'm you. And I think we're both stuck on the same highway, going opposite directions, but somehow in the same space." Tom watched his mirror. In the distance behind him, he could see a Volvo that looked exactly like his driving away, heading the same direction he was going, which should be impossible if that driver was going westbound. "What's happening to us?" the other Tom asked, voice tight with fear. "I don't know. But I think the road is backwards. Or we are. Or everything is." Tom tried to organize his thoughts. "When did you enter Highway 60? "About 2 hours ago, near Show Low." "Same. What time was it?" 6:15 p.m. Tom checked his clock. 6:15 p.m. But he'd been driving for nearly 2 hours. His clock hadn't moved. The sun was setting and rising, simultaneously now, ahead and behind, creating impossible illumination from both horizons. The sky between held darkness that sparkled with stars, even though stars shouldn't be visible with 2 suns lighting the landscape. "Tom, I'm seeing things," the other voice said. "There are other trucks out here. They don't look right. They're old, like from the 70s and 80s, but they're also modern. They're overlapping like double-exposed photographs." Tom saw them too. Ghost trucks occupying the same space as solid ones, drivers who were there and not there. Roads that split into multiple versions of themselves. Reality was coming apart on Highway 60. He tried to turn around, but his steering wouldn't respond. The truck continued forward at exactly 55 miles per hour, no matter what Tom did with the accelerator or brake. His hands moved the steering wheel, but the truck ignored the input. "I can't control my truck anymore," the other Tom reported. "It's like something else is driving." Both Toms fell silent, trapped in their respective vehicles, hurtling through space that had lost coherence. The landscape became abstract. Desert that was also forest, daytime that was also night, a highway that ran in all directions simultaneously. Tom saw himself approaching, not in another truck, walking on the highway, wearing his current clothes, looking exactly as he looked now. The walking Tom made eye contact through the windshield, raised a hand in greeting and pointed ahead. Tom looked where his duplicate was pointing. The highway ended in a wall of light, brilliant white, completely obscuring anything beyond. He was racing toward it at 55 miles per hour with no ability to stop. "Do you see the light?" the other Tom asked on the radio. "Yes." "I think that's the way out." "Or the way in," Tom replied. "We don't have a choice." True. Tom watched the light expand to fill his vision. He thought of Jennifer, of his kids, of his ordinary life in Flagstaff. He thought of every normal day he'd taken for granted. Then the light swallowed him. Tom jerked awake at a rest stop outside Socorro, New Mexico. His clock showed 11:47 p.m. He was parked neatly, truck off, keys in his lap. His logbook indicated he'd driven straight through from Show Low, arriving here for a scheduled rest break. He had no memory of the last 5 hours. Tom checked his CB radio. He pressed transmit. "This is Desert Fox. Is there a Tom Richardson on this frequency?" No response. Just normal trucker chatter on other channels. He never drove Highway 60 again. When routes required it, Tom quit and found different loads. He won't explain why to dispatchers, won't discuss it with other drivers, but sometimes late at night his CB radio activates by itself, and he hears his own voice, distant and distorted, saying, "Tom Richardson, please respond. I'm still on Highway 60. I can't find the exit. Please help me. I've been driving for years. Please." Tom doesn't answer. He's too afraid he'll end up back there on the road that runs backwards into nowhere. Story number 5. The cargo that screamed. Linda Martinez accepted the sealed cargo job because the pay was exceptional. Triple her normal rate for a simple overnight haul from Shreveport to Memphis. The dispatch instructions were specific. Pick up the container at an industrial park. Don't open it under any circumstances. Deliver to a warehouse address by 6 a.m. The shipping company was legitimate. Linda had hauled for them before. The container was small, maybe 8 feet long, loaded onto her flatbed at 9 p.m. on a humid Louisiana night in July 2020. It looked standard, metal construction secured with heavy-duty locks labeled only with a serial number and fragile, refrigerated materials. Linda's Mac Anthem came equipped to power refrigerated units. She hooked up the electrical, confirmed the cooling was active, and headed north on I-49. For the first hour, everything was routine. Light traffic, clear weather, the steady rumble of road beneath her tires. Linda listened to classic rock and made good time. Around 10:15 p.m. she heard it, a thump from the container. She checked her mirrors. The container sat secure on her flatbed, straps tight, no visible movement. Probably the load shifting. She'd heard similar sounds 1,000 times. The thump came again, then another, a rhythm developing. 3 thumps, pause, 3 thumps, pause. Linda's hands tensed on the wheel. The shipping manifest said refrigerated materials, mechanical parts, chemicals, biological samples. That kind of vague description could mean anything. But the rhythm bothered her, too deliberate, too much like knocking. She grabbed her CB. "This is Bayou Queen heading north on I-49. Anyone else hauling for Meridian Logistics tonight?" Static then. "Bayou Queen, this is Midnight Rider. Negative on Meridian. Why?" "Just checking. Having some weird noises from my cargo. Probably load shift. Check your straps at the next stop." Linda agreed and signed off, but the knocking continued. 3 thumps, pause, 3 thumps. It went on for 20 miles. Then it changed. A sound like fingernails scraping metal came from inside the container. Long, dragging scratches as if something were clawing at the interior walls. Linda's mouth went dry. She told herself it was impossible. Sealed container, refrigerated, probably holding industrial equipment or medical supplies. Nothing alive could be in there. The scratching became frantic. Multiple points of contact now, like several hands or paws or something raking across metal. Linda could hear it clearly over her engine and the wind noise. Hear it through her closed cab windows. The sound was piercing, desperate. Then came the screaming. It was human, absolutely, unmistakably human. A woman's voice, shrieking in terror and pain, crying out words. Linda couldn't quite distinguish. The voice was muffled by the container walls, but horrifyingly clear in its agony. Linda's foot hit the brake instinctively. She pulled onto the shoulder near mile marker 177, her hands shaking so badly she could barely shift into park. The screaming continued, echoing across the empty roadside. She grabbed her phone to call 911. Before she could dial, the screaming stopped. Complete silence. Even the normal night sounds, insects, distant traffic, seemed to have been swallowed by the sudden quiet. Linda climbed down from her cab. Every instinct screamed at her to stay inside, to drive away, to call the police. But if someone was in that container, if someone was hurt... She approached the container slowly. Her flashlight beam played across the metal surface. No damage, no signs of forced entry or tampering. The refrigeration unit hummed steadily, maintaining temperature. The locks were solid and intact. Linda put her ear against the container wall. She could hear the refrigeration compressor, the quiet hum of cooling. Nothing else. No breathing, no movement, no indication anything was inside. "Hello?" she called. "Can you hear me? If someone's in there, make a noise." Silence. Linda returned to her cab and called the Meridian Logistics emergency line. A bored-sounding dispatcher answered. "What's your truck number and location?" Linda provided the information. "I'm hearing sounds from the sealed container. It sounds like someone screaming inside." "That's impossible. Your cargo is designated RTG 774, containing medical imaging equipment. No biological materials, no live cargo." "I know what I heard. Someone is screaming inside." The dispatcher sighed. "Ms. Martinez, those containers are completely sealed and monitored. Internal sensors show proper temperature, no anomalies. You're experiencing audio pareidolia, hearing patterns in random noise. Please continue to your destination. Opening the container voids your contract and results in immediate termination." Linda wanted to argue, but she needed this job. The pay would cover 3 months of Kayla's college tuition. What if there's actually someone inside? There isn't. Internal cameras show empty cargo space with equipment. Continue to Memphis. The call ended. Linda sat in her truck, staring at the container in her mirrors. Internal cameras? The dispatcher said they could see inside. If they could see inside and confirmed it was empty, then what was making those sounds? Linda forced herself to start driving. The container remained silent for 30 miles. She started to relax, convincing herself it had been some acoustic illusion, vibrations in the metal creating false patterns. Then the whispering started. It came through her CB radio, though no one was transmitting. Multiple voices overlapping, speaking in languages Linda didn't recognize. The whispers built in intensity, becoming urgent, pleading. She switched off her CB, but could still hear them. Coming from her phone, her truck's speakers, even seemingly from the air itself. One phrase kept repeating in English through the chaos. "Let us out. Please let us out. We're so cold." Linda's hands clenched the steering wheel. She was passing through Texarkana now, the Texas-Arkansas border. She could see other vehicles, normal traffic. Everything looked ordinary except for the voices that wouldn't stop. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, Linda answered. Heavy breathing filled the line. Then that same woman's voice from before, but calm now, almost conversational. "You won't help us?" "Who is this? What's in the container?" "We are. All of us. We've been in here so long, Linda. It's dark and cold and we can't get out." "How do you know my name?" "We know everything about you. Daughter Kayla, 19, studying biology at LSU. Ex-husband James, lives in Baton Rouge, works at the refinery. Your mother Rosa in the nursing home in Metairie. You visit every Sunday when you're not on the road." Linda's blood turned to ice. "What do you want?" "Open the container. Set us free. We'll leave you alone, we promise. We just want to go home." "I can't. The locks. You have bolt cutters in your tool compartment. Box 7. You keep them there in case cargo straps jam." That was true. Linda had never mentioned it to anyone. "What are you?" The voice laughed, a sound like wind through broken glass. "We're what gets shipped when people disappear. We're what fills the containers no one is supposed to open. We're the cargo that's always moving, never arriving, forever trapped between destinations." Linda hung up. She was crying now, vision blurred, hands shaking. She saw a sign for a way station ahead and took the exit. There would be people there, witnesses, safety. The way station was closed, lights off, gates locked, completely empty. That shouldn't be possible. I-49 way stations operated 24/7. The container started rocking on her flatbed. Linda could see it in her mirrors, swaying violently despite the straps, as if something massive were throwing itself against the interior walls. The refrigeration unit sparked and went dark. Temperature alarms blared from her dashboard. The container's internal temperature was rising rapidly, 40 degrees, 50, 60. The manifest said it needed to stay below freezing. Linda drove. She didn't know what else to do. She pushed her truck to 80 miles per hour, racing toward Memphis, toward delivery, toward the end of this nightmare. The container burst open. Linda heard the explosive sound of tearing metal. In her mirror, she watched the container's rear door rip free from its hinges and tumble onto the highway behind her. Dark shapes poured out, dozens of them flowing like smoke and shadow spreading across the road. They weren't human. They had been once, maybe, but not anymore. Linda caught glimpses of twisted forms, too many limbs, faces that screamed without mouths, bodies that bent in impossible angles. They chased her truck. She could see them in the mirrors running faster than anything should move, gaining despite her speed. Some took flight floating on the wind, others simply vanished and reappeared closer. Linda's CB radio activated. "Thank you for freeing us, Linda, but you were supposed to keep us contained. Now you have to take their place." "No," Linda screamed. I didn't open it. You did." "Doesn't matter. The container needs cargo. Those are the rules." The things caught up to her truck. They flowed over the flatbed, across her cab roof, pressing against her windows. Linda saw faces, human faces, trapped in the dark mass, mouths open in eternal screams. She recognized one, a trucker she'd met at a rest stop 6 months ago. Rick something. He'd been hauling for Meridian Logistics. He'd mentioned a weird cargo job, good pay. Then she'd never seen him again. The things began seeping through her cab walls, defying solid matter. Cold fingers touched Linda's shoulders. She felt herself being pulled backward out of her seat into the mass of screaming shadows. Linda woke up at the Memphis delivery warehouse at 5:47 a.m. She was parked correctly, container intact and sealed, no memory of the last 20 minutes. The warehouse supervisor signed her receipt, confirmed delivery, and paid her electronically. Linda inspected her flatbed. The container looked perfect. No damage, no open door, lock secure. She checked the interior through a small inspection port. Empty. Just metal walls and a working refrigeration unit. She drove home in a daze. The money appeared in her account, triple rate, as promised. Linda paid Kayla's tuition, but now, sometimes, Linda hears scratching in empty spaces. She hears whispers from containers that should be silent. And when she looks in mirrors at just the right angle, she sees herself in the reflection. But her reflection is screaming and pounding on glass that doesn't exist. Linda doesn't haul for Meridian Logistics anymore. She's been blacklisted anyway. They say she's unreliable, prone to hallucinations. Last week, Linda saw a truck on the highway hauling a familiar container. Same serial number, RTG 774. Same refrigeration unit, same sealed locks. A different driver at the wheel. A woman Linda didn't recognize. Linda tried to flag her down, to warn her. But the truck drove past, and Linda realized the truth. The warning wouldn't matter. The driver wouldn't remember anyway. None of them ever did. Except Linda. She remembers. And that might be the worst punishment of all. Story left for 6, the midnight broadcast. Kevin Thornton's AM radio picked up the station around 12:47 a.m. while crossing West Virginia on Route 50. He'd been hauling automotive parts from Ohio to Virginia, fighting drowsiness with coffee and music. When his usual station dissolved into static, he spun the dial, searching for anything to keep him alert. The voice came through clearly, a smooth male announcer speaking with the cadence of old-time radio. "Good evening, drivers. You're listening to Highway Eternal, broadcasting on 640 a.m. Time now is 12:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Temperature is 63 degrees. We'll be with you all night, so stay tuned. Kevin relaxed. Perfect. A trucker-friendly station playing overnight. The announcer continued, "This program is dedicated to drivers currently traveling Route 50 through West Virginia. We see you out there. Thank you for listening." That was oddly specific, but Kevin appreciated the local focus. Music started. Glenn Miller's "In the Mood," big band sounds from the 1940s. Not Kevin's preference, but better than silence. After the song, the announcer returned. That was Glenn Miller, as requested by Kevin Thornton, currently driving a 2019 Freightliner Cascadia, hauling cargo from Columbus to Richmond. "Kevin, we hope you're staying alert out there. Coffee's wearing off, isn't it?" Kevin's hands jerked on the wheel. The announcer had used his name, his full name, and knew his truck model, his cargo route, even knew about the coffee. He grabbed his CB radio. "This is Mountain Man on Route 50 eastbound. Anyone else picking up a weird AM station on 640? No response. He tried again. The CB was working. He could hear the carrier wave, but no one answered. The radio announcer continued. "Kevin's trying his CB now. Don't worry, Kevin. No one else can hear this broadcast. Highway Eternal is for you alone tonight. Well, you and the others." Kevin's heart pounded. He reached to change the station, but his hand froze. He couldn't move his arm. Paralyzed from the shoulder down, his right arm remained locked in place on the steering wheel. "Don't try to turn it off," the announcer said pleasantly. "You need to listen. There are rules to traveling Route 50 at night, Kevin. Important rules that weren't explained to you. We're here to correct that oversight." Music played again, something older, a crackling recording that sounded like it came from the 1920s. A woman singing in French, her voice distant and ghostly. Kevin's left arm still worked. He grabbed his phone with his functioning hand and tried to dial 911. His screen showed no signal despite having full bars. The phone was connected to his carrier, receiving data, but couldn't make calls. The announcer returned. "Rule number 1. Don't stop driving. You must maintain forward momentum through the darkness. Coming to a complete stop has consequences." "Who are you?" Kevin shouted at the radio. "I'm your host for the evening, Kevin. My name is Robert Chambers, and I've been broadcasting Highway Eternal since 1952. Quite a long shift, but someone has to guide drivers through." "Through what?" "The stretch, the thin place, the road that exists between midnight and dawn, where the living world and other places touch. Not everyone who drives at night crosses into it, but you did. Mile marker 117 to be specific. That's where the boundary is thinnest." Kevin checked his mirrors. Route 50 looked normal. 2 lanes, dark forest on both sides, occasional houses. But now that he paid attention, he noticed details. No other vehicles in either direction, no lights in any of the houses, no stars visible despite the clear sky. "Rule number 2, the announcer continued. Don't leave the road. Stay on Route 50. Any turn, any exit will take you deeper into the stretch. The only way forward is forward." Kevin saw a gas station ahead, lights blazing, looking welcoming and normal. His fuel gauge showed half full, but the sight of it triggered desperate hope. People, help, safety. "Don't stop at that gas station, Kevin," Robert Chambers said softly. "I know it looks real. They always do. But if you pull in there, you'll never pull out. The station exists to catch drivers who don't understand the rules." Kevin gripped the wheel with his one mobile hand and forced himself to drive past. As he did, he glanced at the station. A truck sat at the pumps, an ancient Mack from the 1960s, perfectly preserved. The driver stood outside, staring at Kevin, waving frantically. The driver's mouth was moving, shouting something, but Kevin heard nothing except his engine and the radio. "That's Charlie Morrison," the announcer explained. "Stopped at that station in 1967, still trying to leave. Don't be like Charlie." Kevin's breathing came in short gasps. How do I get out of here? Rule number 3, listen to Highway Eternal. We'll guide you through. Ignore us and you'll end up like the others. More music. This time something contemporary. A pop song from the early 2000s. It played backward, the lyrics reversed, creating an eerie, warbling effect. Kevin drove on, his truck maintaining exactly 55 miles per hour, regardless of what he did with the accelerator. The road stretched endlessly ahead, identical trees on both sides, no variation in the landscape. His odometer was spinning, showing miles traveled, but he never seemed to reach the next town. "Tell me about Sarah," Robert Chambers said suddenly. Kevin flinched. Sarah was his ex-wife. They divorced 3 years ago. "What about her?" "You think about her a lot while you're driving, wondering if you made a mistake, wondering if you should have tried harder." "Stop it!" The stretch knows your thoughts, Kevin. Everything in your mind becomes real here. Be careful what you think about. As if summoned by the words, a figure appeared on the roadside ahead. A woman, blonde, wearing a blue dress Kevin recognized. Sarah's favorite dress, the one she'd worn to their rehearsal dinner. The Sarah figure waved at him, smiling, beckoning him to stop. "That's not her," Kevin said aloud, reminding himself. "Sarah's in Cleveland, that's not real." "Correct," the announcer confirmed. "It's a memory-given form. The stretch is hungry, Kevin. It feeds on travelers, but it prefers drivers who stop willingly. So it shows them things they want to see." Kevin kept driving. The Sarah figure's expression changed from welcoming to confused, then angry. She shouted something as Kevin passed, her face contorting with rage. "Rule number 4, Robert Chambers continued. Trust nothing you see except the road itself. The stretch will show you many things. Loved ones, Ju-Yuan crews, police officers. All of them want you to stop. None of them are real." Kevin's radio began showing other stations on the dial. He could see their frequencies, see their call letters. Normal stations that should exist. But he couldn't change away from 6:40 a.m. The dial wouldn't turn. "You're wondering how many drivers are out here," the announcer said. "The answer is more than you'd think. On any given night, 3 or 4 truckers cross into the stretch on various highways across America. Most make it through by dawn. Some don't." "What happens at dawn?" "The boundary thins again. The stretch releases you back into normal space. You'll find yourself on Route 50, 10 or 20 miles farther than you should be, with no memory of why you can't account for the missing time. Unless you break the rules, then you stay here." Kevin checked his clock. 1:23 a.m., hours until dawn. His functioning hand ached from gripping the wheel so tightly. More figures appeared on the roadside, dozens of them standing between the trees, all facing the road. Some wore clothes from different eras, 1930s suits, 1950s dresses, 1990s flannel. All of them watched Kevin's truck pass with empty eyes. "Those are the ones who stopped," the announcer said quietly. "They're part of the stretch now. Technically still alive, but not in any meaningful sense. They exist here, forever, waiting for someone to stop and join them." Kevin recognized one face. Old Jake Patterson, a veteran trucker he'd met at a truck stop years ago. Jake had mentioned taking a late-night run through West Virginia and experiencing something strange. Then Jake had disappeared. The trucking community thought he'd retired to Florida. But there he stood on the dark roadside, wearing the same clothes Kevin remembered, not a day older, staring. "Rule number 5, the announcer said. "Don't think about stopping. Don't consider it. Don't imagine what might happen if you pulled over for just a moment. The stretch responds to intention. If you seriously contemplate stopping, you will stop, regardless of your control." Kevin forced his mind blank. He thought about nothing except the white lines on the road, the endless center line drawing him forward. Don't think about stopping. Don't even acknowledge the possibility. His truck began to slow. Kevin, the announcer's voice held warning. You're thinking about it. You're wondering what would happen. Your curiosity is pulling you off the road. I'm not, Kevin protested, but he was lying. Part of his mind was asking, what if I stopped? What would really happen? Maybe it's not as bad as the radio says. The truck was down to 40 miles per hour, 35, 30. Fight it, Kevin, Robert Chambers urged. Think about Richmond. Think about delivering your cargo. Think about home. Kevin pictured his apartment, his cat, his next scheduled run. The truck accelerated back to 55. His foot hadn't touched the pedal. Good, the announcer breathed. You're learning. The stretch is a predator, but it plays by rules. It can only catch you if you let it. The landscape finally changed. A bridge appeared ahead, spanning a river Kevin didn't recognize. The water below looked wrong. Too still, too dark, reflecting nothing despite the truck's headlights. This is the halfway point, the announcer explained. Cross the bridge and you're past the deepest part of the stretch. After this, it gets easier. Kevin approached the bridge. The surface looked normal. Concrete and asphalt, standard guardrails. But as his wheels touched it, the entire structure groaned, a sound of metal and stone under impossible strain. Below the bridge, shapes moved in the dark water. Large shapes creating wakes but never surfacing. Kevin kept his eyes on the road and drove faster. The bridge was longer than it should be. He crossed for 5 minutes at 55 miles per hour, nearly 5 miles, but the bridge had looked maybe 300 yards long. Space was distorted here, stretched like the name suggested. Finally solid ground. Kevin exhaled in relief. Well done, Robert Chambers said. You're through the worst. 3 more rules to get you home safely. Tell me. Rule number 6. Don't look at your cargo. Whatever you're hauling, it's changing while you're in the stretch. Looking at it makes the changes permanent. Kevin's cargo was automotive parts. Alternators, starters, engine components. Sealed in the trailer behind him. He hadn't looked since crossing into this nightmare, and he wouldn't. Rule number 7. When you see the light, drive toward it. Don't hesitate, don't question. The light is the exit. Kevin nodded, though the announcer couldn't see him. Rule number 8, and this is most important, Kevin. Don't talk about Highway Eternal. Don't tell anyone about this broadcast. The stretch is a secret that maintains itself. Drivers who talk about it in detail find themselves back here the next time they drive at night, permanently. The sky ahead was lightning, not sunrise, too early, but a glow on the horizon, soft and welcoming. That's your exit, the announcer confirmed. Drive into the light, Kevin. You've done well tonight. Will I remember this? Most don't, but some do in fragments, like a dream. You'll avoid Route 50 at night without knowing why. You'll feel uneasy on late drives. That's normal. Kevin drove toward the light. It expanded, filling his vision, washing over his truck in waves of warm white. Until next time, Kevin, Robert Chambers said. Highway Eternal will be here if you need us again. Good luck. The light consumed everything. Kevin jerked alert at a rest stop near Charleston, West Virginia. His clock showed 5:17 a.m. He'd apparently pulled in for a break, though he didn't remember doing it. His logbook showed he'd driven straight through from Ohio, stopping here on schedule. His radio was on, tuned to a country music station. His right arm moved normally, no paralysis. Kevin checked his mirrors. Normal traffic, normal dawn, everything ordinary. He started his truck and continued to Richmond, delivered his cargo, finished his run. Everything was fine. But Kevin never drives Route 50 at night anymore. He can't explain why. When dispatchers ask, he invents excuses. Bad road conditions, prefer daylight, any lie that works. And sometimes, late at night on other highways, his radio picks up static. In that static, just barely audible, Kevin hears a familiar voice. "Good evening, drivers. You're listening to Highway Eternal." Kevin always changes the station immediately, and he drives a little faster until dawn. Story number 7. The Missing Mile. Gloria Henderson noticed the mile marker skip during her 2 a.m. run through Nebraska on I-80. She'd been driving professionally for 8 years, knew this route intimately. The endless flat plains, the spacing of exits, the precise distance between rest stops. Mile marker 311, then 312, then 314, no 313. At first, Gloria thought she'd simply missed it in the darkness. Easy to do when fatigue set in. But something nagged at her. She'd been watching specifically because 313 was the exit for a good truck stop she frequented. The exit didn't appear. Gloria checked her GPS. It showed her location correctly, indicated she was passing through the area where the 313 exit should be. But there was only straight highway, no exit ramp, no truck stop lights in the distance. She grabbed her phone and searched for the truck stop's address. Her navigation app loaded the location, exit 313, I-80, Nebraska. According to her phone, she was currently 3 miles past it. But she'd never seen it. Gloria's skin prickled. She continued driving, unease growing. At mile marker 320, she pulled off at a well-lit rest area and parked. She needed to think this through, determine if exhaustion was making her paranoid or if something genuinely strange had happened. Inside the rest area building, a single attendant sat behind a counter, an elderly man reading a paperback. Gloria approached. "Excuse me, there's supposed to be a truck stop at exit 3113. Did it close?" The attendant looked up, eyes sharp despite his age. "No exit 313 on I-80 through Nebraska." "Yes, there is. I've stopped. There dozens of times. Big TA truck stop, good restaurant, showers. Ma'am, I've worked this rest area for 22 years. I-80 skips from 312 to 314. Always has." Gloria pulled out her phone, showing him the truck stop's listing. The attendant studied the screen, frowning. "That's interesting. Your phone says exit 313, but look." He pointed to a Nebraska highway map on the wall. The map clearly showed exits numbered 312 and 314 with no 313 between them. "That's impossible," Gloria insisted. "I have memories of that truck stop. I know the layout, the staff, the menu." The attendant's expression shifted to something like pity. "Do you remember exactly when you last stopped there?" Gloria thought back. "Last month? Maybe 2 months ago?" But as she tried to pin down specific details, they slipped away. She remembered the truck stop, or thought she did, but couldn't recall a specific visit. No particular conversation, no specific meal, no concrete memory. "You should keep driving," the attendant said quietly. "Don't think about it too much. These things happen on I-80 sometimes. Places that were never there or were there once and aren't anymore. Best to just let it go." Gloria returned to her truck deeply unsettled. She pulled up more apps, checked multiple sources. Google Maps showed exit 313. Her trucking company's routing software showed exit 3113, but the physical road had skipped it entirely. She decided to check on the return trip. Gloria continued east to her delivery in Iowa, dropped her load, picked up westbound cargo. 48 hours later, she was heading back on I-80 at 2 a.m. again, approaching the area where 3213 should be. Mile marker 311, mile marker 312. Gloria slowed, watching carefully. Mile marker 313 appeared. Gloria nearly swerved in shock. There it was, clear and normal, reflecting her headlights. And there was the exit, the ramp leading to the truck stop that glowed in the distance exactly as she remembered. She took the exit on impulse, needing to confirm the place was real. The ramp curved right, leading to the familiar parking lot. The TA sign shone bright against the dark sky. Everything looked normal. Gloria parked and climbed down. The air felt wrong. Too still, too quiet, like being in a soundproofed room. She walked toward the building, noticing details. The other trucks in the lot were all older models, nothing newer than maybe 2010. Some were ancient, rigs from the 1980s and 90s, perfectly preserved. Inside, the restaurant was populated. Drivers sat at tables, eating, drinking coffee. They looked normal, wore normal clothes, acted normal. But something about them was off. They moved just slightly too slowly, spoke just slightly too quietly. And they all looked up when Gloria entered, tracking her with expressions she couldn't read. Coffee? A waitress appeared holding a pot. She looked about 50, wearing a standard uniform, name tag reading Diane. Yes, please, Gloria said automatically, sliding into a booth. Diane poured coffee, the liquid streaming out impossibly slowly, taking 10 seconds to fill the cup. Passing through? Yeah, heading to Utah. Long drive, you should rest here a while. Gloria picked up the coffee cup. The liquid inside wasn't moving, wasn't steaming despite being freshly poured. It looked like coffee, smelled like coffee, but was somehow wrong. She set it down without drinking. Looking around the restaurant, Gloria noticed none of the other drivers were actually eating. They held forks, lifted cups, made the motions, but nothing consumed. Food sat untouched on plates. Coffee remained at the same level in mugs. I should go, Gloria said, standing. Diane's smile never wavered. You just got here. Stay a while. Forever even. It's nice here. Peaceful. Gloria backed toward the door. The other drivers stood simultaneously, all of them rising from their booths and chairs in perfect synchronization. They didn't approach, just stood, watching, waiting. Gloria ran. She sprinted across the parking lot to her Kenworth T680, fumbling with keys, hands shaking. Behind her, she heard nothing, no footsteps, no pursuit, but the sensation of being watched pressed against her back like a physical weight. She started her engine and pulled out fast, tires screeching. The exit ramp back to I-80 eastbound stretched longer than it should, curving impossibly. Gloria accelerated, pushing 60 on the ramp, desperate to reach the main highway. She burst back onto I-80 and checked her mirrors. The truck stop was gone. Just dark plains, no lights, no exit ramp, nothing. Her GPS showed her location as between exits 312 and 314. Gloria drove until dawn, too terrified to stop. She delivered her load in Utah, then called her dispatcher. I need to avoid I-80 through Nebraska. Any alternate routes available? That's 100 miles out of the way for most runs. Why? Gloria couldn't explain. Personal reasons. For months, Gloria avoided that section of I-80. But eventually, a high-priority urgent load required the direct route. She had no choice. At 2 a.m., approaching the area, Gloria watched the mile markers with dread. 311, 312, 314, relief flooded through her. No exit, 313. Whatever had happened before, it was over. The missing mile was gone again, and Gloria was content to let it stay missing. Then her CB radio crackled. Breaker, breaker, this is Diane from the TA at exit 313. Gloria, honey, you drove right past us. Don't you want to stop and visit? Gloria's blood turned ice cold. There is no exit 313. Sure there is, it's right behind you. Check your mirrors. Gloria looked. In her mirrors, mile marker 313 was visible, receding behind her. And beyond it, the truck stop blazed with light, impossibly present in a space that had been empty seconds before. You can't avoid us forever, Diane's voice continued on the CB. We're always here, Gloria, between 312 and 314, in the space that doesn't exist, and eventually you'll stop. Everyone does eventually. Gloria grabbed her radio. Who are you? What do you want? We're the drivers who stopped and never left. We've been here so long, Gloria. Some of us since the highway was built. We're lonely. We want company. And you visited us now. That means you're connected. That means you'll come back. Gloria threw the CB radio against the cab wall, cracking the casing. But Diane's voice continued from her truck's built-in radio, from her phone, from the very air. "See you soon, Gloria. Drive safe now." The voice faded. Gloria drove straight through to Utah without stopping, running on fumes and terror. She sold her truck the next week, quit long-haul trucking entirely, got a local delivery job that never required interstate highways, never required night driving, never required going anywhere near I-80 in Nebraska. But Gloria still has the GPS app on her phone. Sometimes late at night, she opens it and searches for exit 313 on I-80. The app shows it clearly: truck stop, restaurants, fuel, services, reviews from drivers who stopped there, posted as recently as last week. She recognizes some of the reviewers. Drivers she knew, drivers who disappeared over the years. All of them giving the truck stop 5 stars, writing things like, "Great place," and "Wish I could stay forever," and "Can't leave, don't want to leave, please help, I can't leave." Gloria deleted the app, but it reappears on her phone periodically, installed automatically, showing her that exit 313 still exists somewhere, waiting. And sometimes, driving through her city on local deliveries, Gloria passes mile markers. They count normally: 11, 12, 13, 14. But occasionally she swears she sees a 12.5, or a marker with no number, or a space between markers that feels too long, too empty. The missing mile is spreading, she thinks, finding new roads, new drivers. And someday, Gloria knows, she'll be driving somewhere ordinary, a city street, a rural highway, anywhere, and she'll see it. Exit 313, mile marker that doesn't exist, and she'll have to choose: drive past and spend the rest of her life wondering, or stop and discover what waits for drivers who visit places that aren't there. Gloria hasn't decided yet which choice is worse.